Ken Hill, Racers360, and we're here with another track analysis. And this time we're at Thunderhill. And we're going to spend a bunch of time with this video and going around corner by corner. And we're going to look at a lot of different things. We're going to look at reference points where we're letting off the brakes, some of the intricate features about Thunderhill. What a great track, kind of my home track. A lot of laps around there. And when we go through this, one of the things that I want to be clear with everybody is when we look at our lines and we look at what we're trying to accomplish on this video, I'm going to be explaining them for basically every motorcycle. There are some nuances with the little small bikes, but nowadays that even the 400s and R3s are making enough torque that it's still very, very close to basically all the different kind of bikes. There'll be a couple little things. But when I get into any specific differences for a specific corner for the smaller bikes, I'll chime in with that. So, all right, let's get started at Thunderhill. And the cool thing is that at a bunch of these tracks, we're going to be able to see my data. So we'll be able to start and stop, and we'll draw out some things with the data as well. So, all right, let's get started. So, as we come out onto the front straight at Thunderhill, you know, as we come down the straightaway here, one of the things that I want people to be able to think about is turn one, obviously very, very quick. Even on the small bikes, it's a very, very fast corner. Big bikes, incredibly fast. Being able to not overslow turn one starts from seeing turn one early. So about halfway up the front straightaway, I'll look all the way into turn one, so my depth perception gets engaged and says, hey, yeah, that's where I'm going. And then my sense of speed adapts to that. It changes for that. And that way I don't feel like I'm getting in turn one like, oh my gosh, this is so fast. So let's get our eyes up into turn one a little bit sooner. Let's think about getting the bike moved over as soon as the wall goes away, getting the bike moved over to use all the racetrack on the entry for one. So here we go. As we go past start finish, right? You can look how early I'm getting set up. And of course, we're being cognizant of seeing if any other bikes are coming out on track. In this case, no other bikes are coming out on track. So we're going to use all of the track on the entry. I don't care if it's a Ninja 400. I don't care if it's a Yoshimura Superbike. We're going to use all the track on the entry. Why? Because we can carry more speed with less lean angle. I mean, it just opens up the entry. And again, if any of the professional riders are there, they're going to use every inch of the track. So as we come down in here, and you can see, I just go to apply the brakes right after the start finish line. I build my brake pressure. And at this point, I'm keeping the bike as straight up and down as I can because I'm trying, at this point, this is my brake zone. This is where I'm controlling my speed. And I'm going to keep the bike straight up and down, approximately as straight up and down as I can, so I can maximize my contact patch. And turn-in point, in here you can see, if you can see that we'll start to look at a couple of different references. You know, the first reference that I'm going to look at is I want to turn in when I'm parallel with the track. So you can see, right, I'm really going to spend some time right here being parallel with the edge of the track. That gives me the confidence to know that I'm doing everything I can to maximize my contact patch straight up and down. My turn-in point reference then is there's a little white dot out here, and then sometimes there are some places where we have some of these posts here. There might be a couple of references down here where we can be able to use for turn-in reference points. So those are some of the points that we want to take a look at. And then as we approach those points, then we'll start our turn-in. And yeah, you can just see, matter of fact, let's spend some time making sure that we take a look at that. So hang on here, and I'll get my drawing going. I'm gonna right there. So I know that I want to turn in slightly before that last solid mark. So I'm going to start my turn in as I approach it. And that gives me the adjustment that I need depending on what bike I'm on. But that is the reference point that I'm going to use right there. And it works absolutely fantastic. So you can see, if you look, you can see my brake pressure, and I'm still on the brakes. I'm starting to trail the brake off at this point, trail the brake off, and then you can see my brake release point is just as I start to approach the curb, and I'm starting to pick up the throttle right there. So right there, and again, we're talking milliseconds right here. My brake release point, I know, is before that dark patch. And of course, by the time that my hand moves back and forth, you know, we're going to be able to approach it because we're already traveling at a pretty good clip of speed right there. So the apex is going to be about the end of the curb. So again, you can see that right here. Our apex ends up being about the end of the curb right here. That's our apex. And at that point, again, the apex is, I've got throttle going, basically a neutral throttle. I'm not building a lot of positive throttle at this point. Why? Because I can't quite take away lean angle yet. So at this point, as I transfer, as I know I have my apex, my next point that I'm thinking about is right out here, right out there, which is my exit reference point, which is going to be the end of the curve. And because this is uphill, you can get, I hate to use the word aggressive, but you can use a lot of throttle right there because of the camber and of course the uphill as well. So let's kind of get going here. We'll go this in real time. We'll get this in real time. I'll turn the sound down, get going here, and you can see, look where I end up right there, right? So let's make sure we're drawing this out, right? Perfect. Exit apex, perfect, right there. I love it. And at that point, I've been able to add positive throttle. I've taken away lean angle, and that sets me up for the great drive out of 2. Between 1 and 2, so we want to use as much racetrack on the exit of 1, of course, but a lot of times we'll see people they'll fade into turn 2. It's really common to see people fade in to turn 2. So you can see how, look, I stay parallel with the edge of the track, with the edge of the track. I'm still on the throttle. I go to the brakes. Now, you'll see a lot of people with different line choices coming in here into turn 2. And I don't care the bike. I don't care if it's a 400. I don't care if it's a Yoshimura Superbike or a Graves R1, or excuse me, Attack R1. It doesn't matter. The quicker you go, you're going to use more brakes coming into that situation. So the bike needs to be more upright. So a big, I don't want to say mistake, but a limiting factor for a lot of riders will be they start their turn in somewhere out here. Well, the problem is that when they turn in from out here, what ends up happening is they have their slowest point of the corner really early. They end up at the slowest point of the corner somewhere in here, because as they turn in later and sharper, right, then they have to bleed off more speed. We have all of this time in turn 2. Run the thing out there. You'll see how far I'll use my brakes down in there. So I'm going to turn in a little bit early. Early turn in is what? Early turn in is a wide exit. I want to be wider in the middle of the corner. So this is appropriate because I'm also able to keep the bike more upright, so I can use more contact patch, so I can use more brakes. Okay, great. So what I'm looking for at this point is my brake release point. My brake release point is going to be somewhere down in here. And I want to be able to release the brake in there so I can carry as much entry speed in there as possible. And of course, I'm going to have my eyes up to that situation, eyes up to that situation where I'm releasing the brake right there. So, all right, let's take a look at that, and we'll go ahead, and we can see that the brake is just coming off. You can see we actually put a brake release cone right there when we're doing some of the Rick days. And that's that corresponds really nicely to where I was letting off the brake as well. So in turn 2, let's be clear. In turn 2, if you release the brake, but you can't see your exit and you can't take away lean angle, you can't accelerate. That's all there is to it. So we're just going to run neutral throttle. meaning we're maintaining speed. And in this case, we'll maintain our speed, and we'll maintain it as long as the radius dictates it. So as we come through here, right, we're just holding that throttle, we're maintaining throttle. And now as we approach the apex, and here's something that we have for you at these days is we have our apex cones right here. We want to be parallel with those cones. And you'll start to see the throttle build as we go past that apex because it's an exit corner. So that's how that works. So there's that apex. And let's note on the exit. The faster the bike, the less track you'll use on the exit of 2. Because the faster bike travels between 2 and 3 in less time, which makes it harder to bring the bike back for 3. And 3, right, you can hold more acceleration off of 2, but then you're going to lose time on a big entry corner of 3. So this is a FZ10 on Q3s. We're going to use about half or just past half track on the exit. Small bike, you can use all of the exit. That's great because the bike doesn't accelerate between 2 and 3 as quickly, so you've got time to bring it back. So the setup for 3, we're going to actually, I hate to use the word, we're going to sacrifice a little bit of the exit of 2 because we want to carry more overall speed into 3. So we'll take a look at that, and we'll see how that pans out. Okay, so I'm going to put the video back in regular speed. Draw it out. Yep, there we go. Perfect, perfect. Yeah, I really like that. My reference points at this point are, I want to be parallel. We look for reference points. I want to be parallel with that building. If I come off of 2 and I get lined up straight with that building, I know my lineup for 3 is correct. It used to be that this patch right here was more prominent and we would use it. Now the building is a much better reference point for that, because that patch seems to be going away a little bit. And that's what's going to give me the straightest possible trajectory to 3, so I can use my brakes for as long as I need to, carrying as much overall speed in there. So let's talk about 3 a little bit. We see a lot of different approaches into 3. And a lot of times it's crazy. A lot of times what we'll see is people coming all the way over here and entering 3 way over here. Okay. I've worked with the rider that holds the fastest lap at Thunderhill, and the line that he runs into 3 is right up the inside of 3. Why? Because the bike is more straight up and down, and you can use more brake pressure, and you can accelerate longer. Taking this big wide turn to the left going into 3, you have to stop accelerating sooner, you're running more lean angle longer, and you're out there in the off camber part. Not ideal. So we want to maximize our front tire grip. Our contact patch will go in straighter, make a little bit more of a V out of it to carry more overall speed in and more overall speed out. So I'm going to let the video play in there in real time, and then I'll stop it closer to the slow point so you can take a look at that. So here I haven't even applied the brakes yet. There's the brakes right up the inside, trail the brake off, and then again I'm going to let off the brakes about a third of the way through of turn 3, and there's the throttle, right? And I'm already starting to build throttle right there, and then I drive it past the exit of 3. So notice what I said there. There's an entry of 3 and an exit of 3. Why? Because it's way more than a 90-degree corner. It's almost a 180-degree corner. And of course, as 180-degree corners, we'll break those down into an entry and an exit corner as well. So there's a great entry in 3. There's a great exit out of 3 as well. So there you go. On the exit of 3, here I'm just going to stay holding the bike a little bit extra to the right, and then I bring the bike over for 4. 4 is an exit corner. I use my brakes right there. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think of all the corners at Thunderhill, I struggle the most with, and it's the entry into 4. I never feel like I have it quite right. And mainly it's because I can approach it as a lot of different ways and the lap time pretty much doesn't change. So it's one that I'm constantly always thinking about. But the bottom line is turn 4 is an exit corner. So we want to be starting positive acceleration by it. Notice how, matter of fact, let's back this up a little bit. Notice how I use the brakes for 4, right? I use the brakes. There's my brake release before the apex, right? Because it's an exit corner. And look, I'm starting positive acceleration as I go past the apex. Really important point. Pretty much every bike that I've ridden, except for say an R3 or Ninja 400, I'm going to use brakes for that corner. I'm accelerating. Matter of fact, let's talk about that. Look, I got to wide open throttle. I got to wide open throttle between 3 and 4 because I plan to use my brakes there. So, all right. My exit reference point right here, as we go to look at it, is the curb, right? So here, my eyes are already looking at here, and I'm going to accelerate out to that point. Why? Because it opens up the exit, and it lines me up perfectly for 5 as well. So, all right, let's get going with that. And so as we come up here into 5, we see a bunch of different things that are happening here. And I think the big takeaway for 5 is it's a slow corner. There's not a lot of time to be made up here, but there's a lot of risk here. With 5, I think the big point is let's get through it cleanly with a good setup for 5A, the exit, and I think that's going to make the big difference. Don't get all caught up in a lot of different things here. It's more of getting through it cleanly. So the big things that we'll look through here is my turn in. I'm actually going to turn in a little bit early here because I want to be wide so I'm pointed straight down the hill on the exit. So I can use a little bit of throttle on the exit. So at the bottom, I can roll off the throttle to help the bike turn to exit out of 5A. So I have a little bit of an earlier turn in here, and you can see brake release is just about the curb right there because it's an entry corner. And then as we add a little throttle down the hill, see that right there, right? We add a little throttle down the hill. And it's really not a throttle, it's not a lot, right? So we just add a little bit of throttle down the hill. And then what that does is helps point the bike, shoots the bike down the hill, and then you'll see me roll off the throttle pretty much all the way at the bottom. Let the bike turn, and I start to build the throttle as we come down here. I have 2 different eye reference points right here. And the 2 different reference points I'm using with my eyes, so my eyes can track as I go around the corner. And the first one is I'm going to track this corner worker station. And that way, as that corner worker station comes into my view, I know it's time to be accelerating. And the second one is, if you look way, way, way off in the distance, out in here, there's a big tree that's now getting covered up by orchards. And that's the second reference point, and I'll point that out in just a second as well. So you can see here, see how that reference point came into my vision? Now I'm accelerating, and then there's that tree that I was talking about right there as my point that I want to be lined up with. So that's the tree that I'm looking at right there. A lot of different things on the entry into turn 6. The faster you go, the faster the bike, the lower we're going to go into turn 6. And the reason that we're going to go lower into turn 6 is because we want to maximize our acceleration out of 5A. If we'll see a lot of people, they'll want to come straight down this area here and try to turn down in here. You're going to give up acceleration. You're not going to be able to use as much brake pressure. Motorcycles accelerate incredibly hard. For a low horsepower bike or a low horsepower car, you might open that up all the way because you're trying to maximize the exit because the car doesn't make it or the bike doesn't make as much power. But even on a 400 or an R3, it's still going to be middle of the track, a little bit of brakes, and then you're going to be driving again. So let's think that we want to be lined up again, straight down here, accelerate longer, use the brakes to help the bike turn in less time and distance, so your acceleration could start earlier as well. So let's take us through, we'll take us through 6. Great, you can see there's our brake release cone, and I'm just letting the brakes off just past that brake release cone. Beautiful, positive acceleration as I go past the apex. There's full throttle. And my exit reference point at this point is the end of the curb. So end of the curb is my exit reference point right here. And then once I get to the outside of that curb, you'll notice how I stay straighter longer here, right? I stay parallel with the track until it's time to turn in for 7. So I want to talk about 7 now because I want to run it through at full speed. 7's not a 90-degree corner. So if it's not a 90-degree corner, we can turn in earlier because we want to be put out wide, which of course just sets us up for 8. So watch how I turn in. I'll turn in fairly early, fairly slowly, and I'll drive past the apex of 7 as we build speed in there. So we'll be able to, let's put that out in full speed so we can see that. So here we go. Right there, parallel with the track. There's my turn in, roll off, and look, driving it past the apex, and then there's a setup into 8 as well. So let's talk about 8. 8, very, very fast corner. I mean, you can see the speed, right? We're already well over 120 miles an hour right here. And 8 is another corner where, quite honestly, there is lap time to be had there. We'll see a lot of people overslow it. A lot of people turn in way too late. Again, it's less than a 90-degree corner. It also leads to an uphill part of the track. So getting your exit direction set early is incredibly important. We'll see a lot of people rush 8. So what happens when you rush 8? You get passed in a 9. So let's not rush 8. And yeah, this used to be one of my strong points. And I won a lot of races being patient in 8 and making the pass into 9. So there you go. So basically anything from an SV650 type of a bike and up, you're going to use brakes for turn 8. Remember, brakes will allow you to accelerate longer. Your bike will turn in less time and distance, and you'll be back to full throttle sooner by doing that. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to run this back through at full speed. There's the brakes, right? I'm already off the brakes, and I'm building throttle as I go past the apex. I'm already at wide open throttle, traveling at about 100 miles an hour already as we go through 8. So getting set up for that good drive out of 8, a little bit of an earlier turn in. I don't use all the track on the exit, meaning I use all the track, but I don't use this area right here. I want to have a little bit of a buffer, a little bit of a cushion. Maybe I'd use it in a car, maybe on a slower bike, but a bigger bike, it's really, really not necessary. And the problem is that right here, if you get caught up at the end of the track right there, there's a pretty significant drop off, and that's not a good situation. So I leave myself a little bit of room, just a little bit of margin of error right there, and I think that is a sound decision. So turn 9. My only thought is on turn 9 at this point. I'm really going to spend my thought process on 2 things in 9. Straight up and down braking, and then as I turn in, how much roll speed I can keep going. So you have 2 very, very different brake zones in turn 9. So as we come up into 9, right, I'll go to the brakes. You'll see a lot of brake pressure here. Yep, yeah. You'll see a lot of brake pressure right here. And yeah, so let's take a look at this. Yeah, 1, how much brake pressure? All of it. Why? Because I'm straight up and down and it's uphill. So it's a really good place then. I can build really good brake pressure right there. Fantastic place to do it. At this point, I'm in speed control. My speed control is going to stay up here until my turn-in point. My turn-in point is about middle of the access road. So I'm only thinking right now of speed control. So straight up and down braking, building speed, and then as I approach my turn-in point, then you'll really see the brakes trail off to roll in for entry speed or roll speed at that point. So let's take a look at that. And let's see about where I'm letting off the brake. So great, yep, there's a turning point. A little bit earlier than what I said, but pretty darn close. Still on the brakes. Brakes are coming off just as I approach the, oh, that's weird. Huh, my brakes come off at where the cone I placed for where I'm letting off the brake. And now in turn 9, because it's uphill, we can start to add a lot of throttle fairly early because it's uphill. Body position and light hands make a really big difference here. We want our butt to the left. And then as we, before we get to the crest, our butt is already over to the right. Here, it's easy to be lost. So the people that have ridden Thunderhill so many times, what do we look for on the exit? Yeah, we look for the water tower. And so we're anticipating the water tower, right? They didn't dig it up. It wasn't gone. They didn't take the last lap and move it. No. It's still there. So we wait for the water tower to come in to our view, right? We wait for the water tower to come into our view. And you can see now that they have that building right there, it's still okay. Water tower is still there, right? So we're looking for that reference points in here. And that knows if we're lined up with our reference points, then we know we're in good shape and we can add throttle at that point. I also want you to notice something is right there. I didn't downshift. And the reason I didn't downshift for that corner, and you can see the RPMs are fairly low, is because I can use more throttle on the uphill part because everybody struggles with the bike wheeling right there. So I'd rather have the bike in a little bit of a lower RPM because it's going to gain speed and gain RPM very, very quickly. Instead of the bike sitting there wheeling and you're on and off the throttle, jacking around with it, I leave it in a taller gear so I can get the wide open throttle without wheeling. So that was also one of my racing secrets, or one of my little racing tactics right there. So don't tell anybody about that one. All right. So at this point, we're going to come down, exit. Yeah, really nice right there. There's full throttle. Really hard to see your approach to turn 10. Very, very quick. You can see we're going to be ending up at about 130 miles an hour coming down up into 10. Brake markers are very difficult. Remember, a brake marker is a brake marker. It doesn't matter if it's on the right side of the track or the left side of the track. In this case, a lot of times people will be thinking, okay, yeah, I have to have my brake marker and I'm looking for something somewhere in here, right? No, I'm looking over here for my brake marker. And I know, depending on the bike, it might be the beginning of the curb, the middle of the curb, end of the curb, but a brake marker is a brake marker. So I'm going to use the left curb right there because there's really nothing on the right side of the track to make that happen. So I know that that's a place that I'm going to apply the brakes. Turn 10, a very balanced corner. So my brake release, you'll see, is about the curb as I approach the apex. It's going to be really, really close to that. So, all right, we'll take you through turn 10. Yep, there's my brake application. Straight up and down on the brakes. And again, you can just start to see it. This video doesn't have a really clear picture of it, but there's another one of those white dots out there to the right. I start my turn in there, and you can see I'm just releasing the brake right as I approach the curb right there because it's a very, very balanced corner. That way I'm maximizing my entry speed. At this point, as I transfer to the throttle, my exit apex is going to be the end of the curb, which coincides with my entry to 11. Because remember, I want to stay parallel with the side of the track. And because turn 11 is a very slow, more than 90-degree corner, I want to turn in a little bit later and a little bit quicker for that corner. So I want to take advantage of both things, right? If I use all the exit out of 10, that sets me up very, very well for 11 as well. So that's how we take a look at that. So let's watch this in real time. Here's my exit. Beautiful. Great. Let's stop it right here. Turn 11 approaches the second fastest part of the track. And what you do for your slow point in 11 equals your top speed coming under the bridge going into 14. So precision and being deliberate here equals to big speed under the bridge. So be patient, be deliberate, be concise here so you can approach the second fastest part of the track with the maximum amount of speed. So here, right, you can see I come in here, I just hold a little bit of to the left right here, and then a very quick turn to here. So let's draw this out, because I think this is a super, super important point in what I am trying to accomplish. What I'm trying to accomplish is drawing this backwards from 13, and I'm trying to make this point as straight as possible. Because a lot of times what we'll see is we'll see people, they'll end up down in here, or they'll end up facing this way, right? And they're not able to have as straight a line in there. Well, we're trying to make our line in there as straight as possible so we can use as much throttle as possible. So being lined up out of 11 and then 12 and then 13 is what allows you to have that straightest line through there and allows you to have as much throttle through there as you can. So here, you got to be really careful in here. We see a lot of people want to try to cheat this area. I'm already cheating it a little bit, but not too bad, because if we were racing, I think I'd still be pretty close. We'll see a lot of people try to run in this area. Yeah, that's not a good place to run. So we want to be able to run through there as cleanly as possible and not add risk, especially risk to other people as well. So as we come through there, I'll drive, exit out of there, exit apex right there. You can see where we've got that cone. It's also where that white line starts as well. And as we come down into 14, again, I'm going to move over and I'm going to use all the track. And this is where my straight up and down braking is, right? And you can see, watch my braking, right? I'm full throttle, full throttle, full throttle. And then I go to the brakes and you see, right? I build that brake pressure, right? I'm deliberate. I build the brake pressure. I let the front end load, and then we add as much brake pressure as we need at that point to control our speed. So we add that brake pressure, and we see a lot of early or fading in, a lot of not using all the track on the entry. Let's think about that. Turn 14 is way more than a 90-degree corner. So a later turn in is what we're looking for as well. And we've got that cone, we've got that cone, and there's another cone down there. Turn in is going to happen somewhere between the second cone, second to the last cone, and the last cone. Somewhere in there is where our turn in is going to be. Notice that I'm turning in parallel with the track, right on the white line, right? So I can maximize my radius and maximize my speed in there at that point. Great. So we turn in just past the second cone. Brakes are still on. I'm just releasing the brake where that brake release cone is. Then here it's easy to get a little bit lost. And my reference point here is I'm visualizing that last marker. You can see the paint is kind of worn off right now, but I'm visualizing this point right here. That's where I'm trying to get my eyes to. I'm also trying to turn in a little bit before it as well. So it's a great reference to jump my eyes to, but I also know that I'm going to be turning in before that point as well. Because I want to turn in a little bit early to be shoved out wide for 15. And the idea is that I want to be driving past 15, right? Driving past the most important corner on the racetrack as far as top speed is concerned. So here you watch my throttle graph. Yep, and it's building as we go past the apex. Full throttle before I get to the curb. And then third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear. And that gets us a lap of a Thunderhill. So yes, a lot to this one. There's a lot going on to this track. But I'm hoping that you can see that as we did our turn-by-turn analysis, there's a lot of great points with reference points, a lot of great points of where we're letting off the brake. Same thing that we're taking advantage of entry corners, exit corners with what control, right? Entry corners, you see the brakes stay on for a longer, lighter time. Exit corners, a process is done early because we're starting positive acceleration as we go past the apex. So there's our Thunderhill analysis. Stay tuned for a lot more.